Hello, students. Today we will discuss our first unit of class 12 physics. And the first unit is electrostatics. And today we will discuss electric charge and electric field. Now, first one, what is electric charge? Basically, charge is that property of any substance due to which it has the tendency to attract or repel any other charged body. Now, why attraction and repulsion actually takes place? In nature, anybody have the tendency to minimize their potential energy. When we leave any ball just on the top of the inclined plane, it has the tendency to move towards the lower side of the inclined plane. Why? In nature, anybody have the tendency to minimize its potential energy. Similarly, when two positive charges are kept near to each other, they also minimize their potential energy when they start to move away from each other. Similarly, when positive and negative charges are there, if we keep them close to each other, they have the tendency to move close to each other. What is the purpose? The purpose to minimize potential energy. So we can see that charged particles can attract each other or repel each other. And this property of charge is called. This is the basic definition of charge, that is, charge is that property of any substance due to which it has the tendency to attract or repel any other charged body. Now the question arises, how the charge produced in a body? You know that in nature, all the substance are made up of atoms, and atoms contains equal number of electrons and protons. Electrons are negatively charged body and protons are positively charged particle. These are particles, subatomic particles, electron, protons and neutrons. These are subatomic particles. And in any atom, the number of electron is equal to number of protons. Electron is negatively charged, and the magnitude of charge that is contained by electron is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. And the proton contain the same amount of charge, but its nature is positive, and that on electron is negative. So if they are present in equal amount, one electron will cancel out the charge on one protons. Let we are taking the example of sodium. Let we are taking the example of sodium. So we know that sodium contains how many charges? Sodium contains 11 electron. 11 is its atomic number. So it will contains 11 electron and 11 proton. You know that charge on one electron is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19. Its nature is negative, not its magnitude, its nature. Coulomb. Coulomb is the unit of charge. And proton have similar amount of charge, but its nature is positive. 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 Coulomb. So the magnitude of charge that is present on electron and proton are equal and opposite. So that's why both cancel out each other in any atom. Sodium, for example, sodium, what is the total number of electron? 11, that's orbit around its nucleus, and 11 proton, they are present inside the nucleus. We can say that the total charge that is present inside any atoms is 0. That is, atoms are electrically neutral. Atoms are electrically neutral. Similarly, if you are taking the example of chlorine, 17 is the atomic number. So it will contain 17 electron and 17 proton. Since the charge over the proton and electron are equal and opposite, so 17 electron will cancel out the charge of 17 protons. So these two are neutral. What happened? When we electron will move from sodium to chlorine. One electron will move from sodium to chlorine. Here in chlorine, 17 and plus 1, 18 electron will be there. And now proton number will be remain same because this is present inside the nucleus. Electron present in the outermost part. And when we ever rubbed any body, only transfer of electron takes place. So one electron will, when transfer from sodium to the chlorine, then chlorine gains additional number of electrons. Here, in case of sodium, there will be 10 electron and 11 proton. 11 proton means 10 proton plus 1 proton. 10 electron will cancel out the charge over the 10 proton because they are equal and opposite. 1 electron will cancel out 1 proton charge. Similarly, 10 electron will cancel out the charge of 10 protons. But this proton will source their charge, and you know that proton is positively charged. So after transfer of electron, this sodium behaves as a positively charged particle. Whereas in case of chlorine, since it's gain 1 electron, so this extra electron, this 17 electrons and 17 protons will cancel out the charge on each other. And this one additional electron, you know that electron is negatively charged particle. Because of this excess electron, chlorine become negatively charged particle and sodium become positively charged particle because there is a deficiency of electron produces after the transfer of electron. So we can say that if any body there is excess of electron, then that body will acquire negative charge. And if any body there is a deficiency of electron occurs, then that body will acquire positive charge. So we can say that charge present on a body are integral multiple of charge present on any body is so we can say that charge present on any body are integral multiple of what? Electronic charge. We can write Q is equals to N E. N for number of electron transfer from one body to another body, and E is the charge on electron. Q is what? Amount of charge. N is what? Number of electron transfers. Number of electron transfer. And what is E? E refers to the charge on electron. Charge on electron. And this charge is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19. If a body gains electron, then since electron is negatively charged particle, for example, if chlorine gains 10 electron, then here the value of N will be 10. And what is the value of E? E is plus, because it will be minus because it gains electrons. Gains means electron is negative charge particle, and if anybody gains that electron is negative charge particle, that body is acquire negative charge. Whereas in case of another body which will lose electron, so there is deficiency of electron creates, and that body will acquire same amount of charge, that is positively charged, and but the magnitude of that charge will be N into E. N is the number of electron transfer. N is what? Charge on electron. This is known as the quantization of electron. Quanta means countable. This principle is basically known as quantization of charge. Quantization of charge. Quanta means countable. We can count charge. Quanta, quantization of what charge? The charge present on a body can be counted. N means number. 1, 2, 3, 4. If one electron transferred, that body will acquire this amount of charge. 1 into charge on electron. 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. So, this principle is known as the principle of quantization of charge. According to this, if any body loses electron, then body will gains positive charge, and the magnitude of that charge is N into E. Now comes to the next point, and that is Coulomb's law. That is Coulomb's law. This law was given by Coulomb, and this law basically deals with the fact to determine the magnitude of force of attraction or repulsion that takes place between the two charges. According to this law, if you take 2 point charges, Q1 and Q2, point charge means charge concentrated at a point, and the distance between center to center is let R. Here Q1 and Q2 are two charges. Then according to Coulomb's law, the magnitude of force of attraction or repulsion is directly proportional to the magnitude of product of the two charges, and inversely proportional to the square of distance between the two charges. Square of distance between the two charges. It will more be the charge present on these two bodies, force will be more, and the force do not depend on individual charge. Force depend on the product of charge. So we can say that if this is 2 Coulomb, this is 4 Coulomb, both will exert equal force, because the force do not depends on individual charge. It depends upon the product of charge. Whatever is the force applied by first body over the second body, let this be the positive charge, and this is also positive charge. So positive will repel. The magnitude of force applied over the second body by the first body will be along this direction, and the magnitude of force, since this repulsion is taking place, the magnitude of force that is provided by the second body over the first body, this can be written force over first body by the second body, by the second charge, is F12. Both are equal and opposite. Both are equal and opposite. And this force can be written as force is directly proportional to product of the two charges. It do not depend upon the magnitude of individual charge. It depend upon the product of the magnitude of the two charges, and inversely proportional to its inverse means if distance will increase, force will decrease. If distance will decrease, force will increase by square time. For example, let in the beginning the distance was r, then the force was F. If you decrease the distance to half, r by 2, what is the square of r by 2? R square by 4. So 4 will comes to the numerator. We can say that force will increase by 4 times. But if distance will increase, to let the initial distance is r and final distance becomes 2r. What is the square of 2r square? 4r square. So we can say that the force decrease by square times, that is 4 times. If we will increase the distance by 3 times, the square of 3r is 9r square. This new force will be 9 times decrease. So we can say that force is inversely proportional to square of distance and directly proportional to magnitude of the two charges. By combining equation 1 and 2, what Coulomb concluded, by combining equation 1 and 2, we can write F is directly proportional to Q1 into Q2 and inversely proportional to square of distance. Now, what Coulomb find out that the force between these two charges is dependent on the medium. In air, this force is more. But if you kept this same two charges inside the water, then the magnitude of force decreases by 80 times in comparison to the force that was operating in air. So we can say that the force of attraction or repulsion that is taking place between the two charges is also depend upon the medium between the two charges. In vacuum or air, this force is more. Whereas if these same two charges are placed inside water, the force that is operating between these two charges will decrease by 80 times. So here we put a constant, and this constant is 4 pi epsilon. Epsilon is the permittivity of any medium. Permittivity of any medium between the, here epsilon, this symbol is known as epsilon, and this is known as the permittivity of the medium. Now the question arises, what is actually this constant refers to? Permittivity is actually the measure of allowance of any medium for electric lines of force. What is electric lines of force? These are the imaginary lines of force that originate from the surface of any charged body. An attraction or repulsion force occurs between the two bodies because of these four electric lines of force. When the two lines of force interact, if the interaction will be more, the magnitude of force of attraction will be more. If interaction of these electric lines of force, these electric lines of force are originating from the surface of this two charged body. From here also these electric lines of force will originate and they start to link. When this interaction will be more, the magnitude of force will be more. So on the medium, the interaction depends on the interaction between the two charged part depends on the fact that how the medium is easily facilitate allowing electric lines of force to interact with each other. If this medium is allowing more electric lines of force to pass through it, the magnitude of force will be more. But if they are allowing lesser amount of electric lines of force to pass through that medium, then the force will decrease. So this is the epsilon value refers to. This is actually the meaning of epsilon. Epsilon is actually permittivity of the medium. Now, if the medium is vacuum, if the medium is air or free space means vacuum, then here we will write epsilon naught for vacuum, and here we will write force between the two charges in air or vacuum will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is the permittivity of free or space for vacuum or for air. Q1 into Q2 by R square. Here the value of this constant is 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton. So we can define this value as 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton. Force will operate between two charges of 1 Coulomb each. 1 into 1, 1. If you multiply 1 by some quantity, it will not affect it. And when the distance is 1 meter square, 1 into 1 by 1, it's 1. So its value of force in air will be 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton. So how we can define charge? How we can define 1 Coulomb? If two charge body which are containing equal amount of charge, and the distance between these two charges is 1 meter, and if the force of attraction or repulsion that is operating between these two charges is of 9 into 10 power 9 Newton, then we can say that the magnitude of the charge that is present over these two bodies are 1 Coulomb each. If two bodies which are containing equal amount of charge, if separated by a distance of 1 meter, then this amount of force will operate between the two charges. So this is the definition of what? Coulomb. Now, since these are what? These are conservative in nature. Electric field is conservative in nature, that we will discuss in next topic. But before that, we will discuss some numerical problem. Let me take three charged particles. First one is Q1, Q2 and Q3. These are plates on the sides of, on the corners of equilateral triangle. This is first charge Q1, this is second charge Q2, and this is third charge Q3. You know that in equilateral triangle all sides are equal, and let all the charges are positive. Now here the question, find the net charge on, find the net force on charge Q3. Now see here, there are three charges. This will exert force over this body. This will also exert force. Now this charge Q2 also experiences force by the charge Q1 and by the charge Q3. Now here what is the question? What is the problem is there? We have to determine the force on charge Q3. Here two charges already present. So this charge will also exert force and charge Q2 will also exert force. So we have to determine force due to individual charge and then sum it and then sum up these two forces. You know that force is a vector quantity. This is positive charge, this is positive charge. Now the force over the charge Q3 due to the charge Q1 will be repulsive because this is positive in nature. So charge Q1 will repel. When charge Q1 will repel, this charge Q3 have the tendency to move away along the line center to center. Along center to center, the force will act. So this will start to move and we can say the direction of force over third charge by first charge will be along this line. And what is the magnitude of this force? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q3 because we have to determine the force between Q1 and Q3. Q1 into Q3. And what is the distance? A square. Now, what is the force applied by the charge Q2 on Q3? So these two are positive. So this charge will repel this charge along this direction. And this force will be represented by force over third charge body by the second F32. F32 refers to force over third charge due to second charge. F31 force over third charge due to charge Q1. So these two are vector quantity and the magnitude of this charge 32 force 32 will be also 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q2 into Q3 and upon distance ka square. Now see here, one force is acting along this direction, second force is acting along this direction. You know that force is a vector quantity. So for addition, we cannot apply a simple method of addition. We need parallelogram of method of vector addition, which is actually the modified form of Pythagoras theorem. That is, hypotenuse square is equal to base square plus perpendicular square. On the basis of that, we determines what parallelogram law vector addition. So these two vectors are there. What is the angle between these two vectors? 60 degree. Now, what is the question? What is the problem here? What we have to determine? We have to determine the force over charge Q3 due to these charges. So first charge repel charge third along this direction and the charge second repel charge third Q3 along this direction. So these two are the vectors and the angle between these two is 60 degree. So resultant magnitude of net force will be, the magnitude of net force will be root under, according to parallelogram law vector addition that we have already discussed in class 11, that if two vectors are inclined to each other by angle theta, then the resultant magnitude, this is a symbol of modulus, modulus means magnitude, is equals to square of the first vector plus square of the second vector plus 2 into first vector, magnitude of the first vector, magnitude of the second vector, and the cosine of the angle theta. What is the angle theta? 60 degree. 60 degree. Cos 60 is 1 by 2. Now we can put the value cos 61 by 2. F31 we will put this value. In place of F32 we will put this value and we will solve. The net force will operate between these two vectors. So we have to draw parallelogram. In parallel to this one, we draw another vector. In parallel to this one, we draw another vector. And this is the diagonal of this parallelogram. So we can say that the, the magnitude of force that experienced by the charge q3 will be this much, and the direction of that force will be along the diagonal of these two vectors, these two force vectors. So what is the this angle? This angle is, resultant angle is theta. Let the direction of resultant force is phi, max with the vector 3 1. So this angle we can, by using parallelogram vector addition, we can determine the direction of force also. And the direction of that force is b sine theta. B is second vector, f32 b sine theta. What is the angle? Sine 60. B sine theta by a plus b, first vector, a plus b, second vector, f32 b sine theta by a plus b cos theta. You will get the direction of this resultant vector. And what is this direction? This is angle phi. The resultant vector max with the any one first vector. Now we will discuss what would happen if this charge is negative and this charge is positive. Q1 is positive and this Q3 is again positive. So what will happen? This will repel F31 and this will attract. Now the magnitude of force will remain same because this is negative. So negative attracts positive charge. Attract means it will pull out this charge Q3 along this side. So direction of this force is along the center of the charge Q3. Now we can determine the magnitude of force 31. Q1 into 1 by 4 pi epsilon Q1 into Q3 by distance a square, and the similarly magnitude F32. But here now the angle become, this is 60, since this is equilateral triangle, this is equilateral triangle, this is equilateral triangle. So you know that this is a straight line. These two are linear pair. This is 60, so this is 120. Now here the angle between the F31 and F32 is what? 120 degree. So here the resultant force will be, here the net force will be something different. It will be F32 square plus F31 square plus 2F31 into